Okay, so a little demonstration of what we're doing today. I'm starting off in this car, and when I press C, I'm going to come out of it, and if I get close to it again, I can get back into and control the car again without having to do anything else. Alright, so that's pretty cool. If you're too far from the car, right, so car's getting away, pressing the E button, and I can't get in, and now that I'm close again, I can get in. So that's what we're making today. And I should add that this is all with the standard asset pack from Unity. Everything that we're using is free. All right, how's it going in this? We're going to make a GTA type game here. Well, really, we're not even making a game. All we're trying to do is get some of that functionality of getting into and getting out of a car. So, I'm starting with a new project here. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my default layout. So, what I like to do is have my hierarchy and inspector right next to each other so that when I select an item, I can easily see it and click on the things in the inspector here as opposed to on the other side. What I want to do now is open the package manager because we're just going to use standard Unity assets. So I'm typing into the search bar, and I'm making sure that I'm in the My Assets packages. I'm going to type into the search bar standard assets. That'd be cool if it worked more immediately. Alright, so I've already got this downloaded, so it'll give me this import button. If you don't have this or you don't have it downloaded, then you can visit the asset store and put that into your assets. Okay, and then you'll get a download button here, and you're going to press import. I'm going to bring in, I'm going to say like every single thing that they have in this, except for the 2D. Let me see where it is. Yeah, the standard assets 2D package. We don't need that right now. I think we're going to want the cameras, we're going to want the characters, we'll want cross-platform input, effects, all that stuff. That's fine. We can bring all that in. Particle systems even, that's fine. Because we might go a little bit further with this. We could even bring in the aircraft, and that's pretty good. So we'll have a lot of different things to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and press import, and this will take a minute to import, and I'll see you guys in a minute. Alrighty, so I've got all my stuff imported. I'm going to go ahead and go into the imported assets here and see if I've got any scenes that I can work with, because it's kind of boring to just use the standard scenes here. Let's see if they've got any. No, they don't. Okay, well, that's fine. We'll just use the sample scene. We're going to bring in a cube. We could do this with a plane, but I'm going to use a cube because it's that's what I'm going to do. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make that bigger. I just made that into a 100 by 100 ground plane. All right. And what we're going to do now is go into the standard assets. We're going to go into the vehicles folder, the car folder, the prefabs, and the car, and we're just going to bring that in. Okay. For whatever reason, I don't have scripts on it. I don't understand that. Right. Okay. So you guys are going to get this error here, and what we can do to fix that, I don't know why they haven't fixed this, but I've seen this for years now. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change this from a GUI text into just a normal UI.text. Okay, so I have to bring in the whole namespace there, and that'll fix that one. We'll see if there are any other errors here. That'll recompile. We'll wait for it to recompile, and we will delete all of our errors. And now that it'll import, I think maybe better. And now we can see our scripts. Okay, let's try and drive this car real quick. All right, so we can drive it. Obviously, it's problematic because we are not following it with the camera. So I'm going to take out this main camera. And in the standard assets, you actually get a pretty good camera, which is an auto cam. So I think, let me try and find it. Yeah, it's the multi-purpose camera. All right, so I'm going to put that behind the car. Let me get over here. We can see that it's in the frame here, so that's about where it would be. So that's fine with me. The target, it's automatically targeting the player, so that's going to target the car. We'll try this again. We'll press play. All right, and it gets its own offset, so we don't even have to worry about that. But the turning is god awful. So, ooh, nice. All right. So what we want to do is increase the turn speed. We can change that to like 5 on the turn speed. We can increase the roll speed to 5, I guess. The turn limit, let's just call that 359, maybe. I don't know if it's checking the left and the right, because if it's going left, I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but if it's going left, it's going to be negative 180, and if it's going right, it's a positive 180, but we'll see how that works. All right, that's already like a lot better. So I want to take off the smooth turn time completely and see how that works. All right, so we're still in play mode. So if we were to exit play mode now, we would lose all those changes. So what I'm doing now is going to copy component, then I'm going to exit, and then I'm going to press paste component values. And when we go back, we'll see that we have the same values. Okay. All right, first step complete. Let's get a character in there. Let's go back into our standard assets. We're going to bring in a character. We could use the first person or the third person character. It doesn't really matter, but I think it looks a lot better with the third person character. Okay. I'm going to put this right next to the car so that we can see what's going to happen. Now, if you guys are familiar with these assets, you know exactly what's going to happen. And we'll see here that when we give input, like right now I'm not doing anything, but when we give input, I'm going to press forward. Both of these objects, both of these assets are going to move around. Why is that? Because both of them have, in their scripts, they have user input in update. So when we're in the car, when we're just in the person mode, then we want to be able to turn off the update function, or really the whole functionality of the other object when we're not using that object. So for example, when we're in the car, all we're going to do is disable the person, so that's really easy. And when we're in person mode, we're not going to make the car disappear, because it looks kind of stupid. So what we'll do is we'll need an access to this car user control script, and we'll see how we're going to do that right now. Okay, now this might not be the best way to do this, but we're prototyping and I want to be able to get functionality in fast, and this is easy for me to visualize, so I'm going to call this a game manager. So I just right clicked, I pressed UI, and I went to the event system. Okay, I called that game manager, and I'm going to make a really weird class name, but it's oddly specific, and that's really what I want. I want to know what my classes are doing, especially when I'm prototyping, so that when I pull or refactor, when I pull all that functionality out, I know more or less where I want to put it later. Okay, so I'm going to call this getting in and out of cars. And yeah, that's really, really specific. We could abstract that and say getting in and out of vehicles, but we are specifically using that car script, and that's going to be important. All right, this is not the script that we wanted. Okay, so in this getting in and out of cars script, I want 2 references to game objects. I'm just going to start with the most simple things first. Okay, so I'm going to start with a game object, and I'm going to call this the human, and I'm just going to default that to null. Okay, now when I press E or whatever, let's actually bring in a key code here. So we'll call this the enter exit key, and I'm going to default that to E. Okay, I think that's a pretty standard interaction key. So when I press the E key, so I'm using if input get key down, enter exit key, I'm going to for now all I'm going to do is disable the human. I'm going to actually, what I'm going to do is say if the human is active, then I'm going to disable it. And if the human is not active, then I'm going to enable it. Okay, so that's what this inversion means. Okay. All right, let's test that out. Let me make sure that I actually put my objects into the fields here, because I have the tendency to not do that. All right. So let's press play, and okay, it looks like we're moving around and stuff. I'm going to press E. Yeah, he disappears. I'll press E again, and he's back in the scene. All right, perfect. Okay. Now what we want to do is when we're let's just start. Okay, so let's start with the scene without the human. Okay. What we want to do when we're in the car is imagine that there's the human guy here driving it. So when I press C, I want him to pop out right here and kind of turn off the car, I guess. So what I want to do is in my getting into and out of cars script, I want to say, let's go ahead and create the get out of car method. So I'm getting out of the car. What I want to do is enable my human. Okay, so we will for sure enable our human when we get out of the car. All right, and what we want to do is put him right next to the car. Okay, so we're going to take his transform.position and make that into the car's transform position, if that makes sense. And obviously you have to have a reference to the car. That would certainly help. So let's get a reference to the car, and we are going to put the guy, when we do this, we're putting him right onto or into the car. So what I'm going to do is press minus transform dot transform direction. So this is taking a local space and putting it into a world space. So it's taking vector3 dot right. Okay. Can we use left? Yeah, we can. Okay, so we're taking vector3.left, which is just -1 in the x-axis, as you can see there. And we're going to put that as a in the direction of the using the transform of the human, so of the car actually. So let's see if that works. What my idea is that it's going to put the guy right next to the car on the left. So we'll see if that works. Let's make sure that we're actually calling the function. All right, so again, we have to make sure that we fill our fields here. And what I mean by fill our fields is make sure that that car field is filled. Okay, now my expectation is that when I press E, the guy is going to appear right here on the left. I did that wrong because I used minus instead of plus. Okay, my bad. I think I used right last time, and I don't know if I knew that there was a vector3.left. Okay, perfect. All right, so that looks pretty decent to me. Okay, now maybe it feels like we're going too slow for you guys, but I want to make sure that we get this right pretty much the first time that we do it on everything. So I'm not going to write too much code at one time. What we want to do now is, all right, so we have this functionality where if we press C, and I can move this just so that you guys know that this is actually working. I can press C, and our guy is going to get out like right next to where the car was at the point at which, so I can do that again. I can just keep on doing that. So he's going to get out of the car right next to the car and on the left, so next to the driver's door. And that's cool. But when we do that, what we want to do is have the car stop taking input. And what we need to do in order for that to happen is get a reference to this car user control. And really, we're going to need a reference to this car controller as well, and you'll see why. But first, let's get a reference to this car user control into our getting into and out of vehicles. And this class, that car controller class, is in the standard assets, Unity standard assets.vehicles.car. So we'll bring in that namespace, And then we are going to kind of tidy up a little bit here. So I'm going to use the header attribute and say car stuff. And we can even bring in the space attribute, and that's going to give us a little bit more space in the inspector. I'm going to put in a header for the input. I know this might seem like not useful, but you guys will see that it's something that you will really appreciate later when you guys look at this after a while. Okay. What I'm saying is once you come back to your project after a while, you're going to go, what the hell is all this stuff? And then you see the headers and you're like, oh man, I really saved my ass here. Okay. So serialized field, that would have been, okay, serialized field. We need the car user controller, car user control. Perfect. Let's call this the car controller. So this is where it's taking input from the user in update. And what we want to do is go ahead and just disable it when we get out of the car. So we're going to say car controller dot enabled equals false, and that's just going to disable the entire component. So let's save. We'll go into the inspector, right? It's going to recompile. We're going to see on our game manager that we have to plug in the car controller on that field, and all we have to do is drag and drop the car and it'll automatically get that component. Okay, and you can see that we have our headers here. We have a little space here. Maybe I put the space in the wrong place. Okay, but anyway, we have this a little bit more organized, and when let's save. So when we press play, we should see, all right, so I'm pressing WASD, WAA right now. Okay, I press E, and the camera is going to keep following the car, but now the car doesn't take my input. So I'm pressing A and all that stuff right now. I'm pressing WASD. So nothing's actually happening with the car. We're going to fix the camera real quick. I think that'll be important because we want the camera now to switch to the guy. Okay, so let's do this with a header again, and we'll bring in the camera. It's an auto cam. I'm not sure if we have to bring in, oh yes, okay, it'll bring it in for us. Okay, so you can see if it doesn't automatically bring that in for you guys, we just brought in the camera's namespace of that Unity standard assets. Okay, so that's called the auto cam class, and we'll just call this the camera, and we'll set that to null. And what we're going to do is when we get out of the car, what we want to set the camera's target to, I don't know if you remember this, but the camera, you can see the AutoCam script has a target here. We're going to set the target to the player, okay? So, camera, set target, human.transform. So it's actually following a transform. All right, let's press save and see if that works. Now this is going to be a conflict because Monty behaviors have a built-in camera. We'll call that M camera. So you used to see people put M in front of their member variables. I don't like to do it, but you can do that, and that's fine for right here. Okay, let's go back in, and we will follow the camera. We're going to take a look at the camera as we do this. So we can see that it's following the car right now. I'm going to move around, and I didn't set the camera in the field. I always forget to do these things. Did I not? I did not. Okay, so we have to serialize that field in order for us to see it in the inspector, or we could make it public, but we don't want other classes to see this stuff. Okay, so let's go back to our camera so that we can see what's happening here. All right, I'm moving around, I'm pressing E. I still didn't I still didn't put the camera in there. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So I have that tendency to not fill those fields. Okay. So that's perfect. Now we're following the guy here. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So we have that functionality now. We can get out of the car and kind of turn it off. Uh-oh. What's happening there? Ah, because it's still steering. Okay. Alright, we may as well fix this now. Okay, because this looks really stupid. Alright, so let's fix this. So, the car continues to get input, even though... So it's still taking in the last input that we gave it, and when I got out of the car, I was still steering. So this move function in the car controller is being called in update, I think, from update. So we can see in the user control, right? So in fixed update, we're calling car move based on whatever our input is, okay? So let's go back to our car controller, and what we want to do is get access to this function. And the easiest way to do this, and again, I'm going with the excuse that we're prototyping. So the easiest way to do this is to just get a reference to the car controller. And we're going to call this the car engine because we already have a car controller, and this is really more the driver of the car, excuse me, the driving force of the car. So we're going to call this the car engine, and we're going to default that to null. So when we get out of the car, we're disabling our car controller, which is our car user controller. And with the engine, what we want to do is call that move function. And we can see that we have these 4 variables here that we're passing in. Steering, we want to set that to 0. Acceleration, set that to 0. Foot brake, hand brake, we could set that to nothing, but for me, I think it would be important to stop its momentum. So you guys can do this however you want. I'm going to stop the momentum of the car by pressing on the brakes as we get out. Okay, so let's go back into the inspector, into the scene here, and let's go to our game manager and make sure that we actually put the car on there. I'm not going to have another mistake like before. Let's get out of the car while we're steering, while we're pressing W. Okay, you can see that it broke. It did braking. All right, you can see that the wheels are still steering, but that's fine. It's already stopped. Now I'm moving around. We don't see it doing all that stupid stuff that it was doing before. I'm going to do this one more time. Maybe I'll try to accelerate it quite a bit and do like donuts or whatever. Okay. Right. So, and the last one, we saw that it started, like, once I started doing this kind of movement, it did, like, weird rotational movement. Okay. And now it's not doing that. I'm sorry that I have to do this, but I hate the sound of the car. I really hate the sound that they used here. And we can change how much that affects us. Now, I'm not turning off the sound. I'm just changing the way that we hear it. Okay, so I'm going into the car audio script that's on the car. Okay, I am going to go down to set up engine audio source. Now, these sources, they're being created in Start, and we don't see the fields of this in the inspector, so we can't really adjust this. We could do it from this car audio script, but it's not as visual as, for example, let's see if we've got one on the player. We don't. We shouldn't we? Okay, what I'm looking for is an audio source. Okay, so I'll just show you an audio source. You guys probably already know this, but you see this like really visual component. It's got all this stuff. It's got the spatial blend. This is what we want to change right now. It's got that max distance, the min distance and stuff. And you can see that here on the car, but it's not as visual as it is on an actual audio source. Now, this spatial blend is what we want to change here, because this is what changes us from hearing it. This is what makes it work in 3D. All right, so if we put this all the way to 1, I'm just gonna, okay, so let's change that. So right now it's at 0. By default, if you bring in an audio source, that spatial blend is at 0, which means that it's in 2D. And again, we're gonna get out of the car. and we're just going to hear that car as if we're like right on top of it. And really we shouldn't, because we're farther and farther away, right? So we're hearing this from the camera, so the camera's pretty close to the car right now. But if we swing this around, we still hear it as if we were right next to the car. Now, we can try, well, okay, that actually worked pretty well. All right, we might not have to change anything. We might just change max roll-off distance. It's horrible. No. Okay, so I'm going to change this so you guys see what I'm saying. All right, so this is like a very abrupt. If you pass that 15 meters, you're going to not hear anything. So I'm going to remove this audio source here. I'm going to go back to the car. I'm into the car audio. And in that setup engine source method, I'm going to go into the source, and very clearly here, I'm going to change the spatial blend, and I'm going to set that to 1 so it's full 3D. And we're going to see what happens. Okay, so that's the only variable that I'm going to change right now. You can see that our max roll-off distance went back to 500. So you'll see that as we get farther away from the car, even though we have that max roll-off distance still at 500, we're hearing that car less and less. And as we get closer, oh, that's beautiful. Right? Because that car noise is so horrible, but now, if I don't want to hear it, I can just run away. All right, that's pretty good. So I am going to change the max roll-off distance. I'm going to call that 25. But that's better. All right. So now what we need to do is set up our script, our getting in and out of car script with getting back into the car. So let's do that. All right. So let's get back into our getting into and out of cars. And what we want to do now is, I hate to do this, but we're going to hack this a little bit. Okay. It's just a little hack. Don't worry, guys. So we're going to bring in a bool that says in car. So if we're in the car, and we're going to default that to false. I just removed the start method so that I could bring it right back in. So in car, we're going to set that to, if the car is active, we're going to assume that we're in the car. So in car equals car active self. So when we start the game, when we press play, this is going to be on by default. It's going to be true by default. So if I press these 3 dots, I can go into debug mode and see those private fields. So I can see that by default, my in-car Boolean is false. Now when I press play, because the car is active, this is going to be true, right? And that's what that's what I was saying before with that line here. Okay, so when we get out of the car, obviously we want to change that to false. Now whenever we do get into car, sorry, I have to write the method, otherwise I can't speak. Okay, so whenever we have a change in a variable like this, I would like to always at the same time, so if I set this to false, I want to also set it to true in the places where it needs to be set. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so when we're in the car, obviously we're in the car. So when we say get into car, we're in the car, right? So we set that to true. Now, this is important. Why did we bring in that in-car Boolean? Why did we bring in that variable? Because when we press enter exit key, we want to know whether we're in a car or not. And if we're in the car, obviously we want to get out of the car, and vice versa, if we're out of the car, or else get into car. Now this is not great because we can get into the car from wherever we want, but this is a prototype, and that's been my excuse the whole time, right? So what do we have to do? What did we do and get out of car? We set the human to true, so obviously we want to set that to false here. Okay, the human, we don't even have to worry about where he is because he's inactive, so we don't have to worry about this line. We have to reset the camera's target. Okay, so we can reset the camera's target, and we are going to set it to the car transform again. Is the car controller going to need to be enabled? Yeah, it is, because we want to drive it, obviously. Okay, and we don't have to do anything here, because now that our car controller is enabled, we're going to be passing the move stuff, or the move input. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. All right, this was a pretty easy method to make, and I think that this is really going to bring us full circle. This is going to give us all the functionality that we needed. This is going to give you guys the functionality that you wanted when you were coming into this video. So I pop out of the car. Yeah, I'm driving. I'm walking around. Press E. I'm back into the car. That camera refocuses. Giving it input again. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm popping out. Back in. All right. So that's pretty good. It's a little hacky. Why? Because I can get out of the car. I can fling it across the map and then get right back in. That's not realistic, obviously, but it's, it's prototyping. Okay, fall back on that excuse again. If you want, you can use a distance calculation to see if you guys are close enough to the car to get into it. So you could say, for example, if I'm not in the car, right? So if we want to be super clear again, so yeah, if in car, then we're going to get out of the car. Else, if out of car, okay, we can leave a little comment there in case that wasn't clear to ourselves. If we're out of the car, then get into the car, right? But what you might want to do is say else if vector3.distance. All right, so we're going to say the distance to the car from our guy, from our human. Okay. If that's less than some distance, then we can get into the car. Actually, let's press save and let's test this out right now. Okay, so I'm pressing save. Actually, I'm going to change this distance because I hate doing magic values like that. Where can we put that? We could put that right here, I guess. Okay, so we're going to bring in a float. This is a float value. Let's call this the close distance. And we'll just set it to default at 15. Okay, so if we're not in the car and we're within 15 meters of the car, we'll get into the car. Okay, and that'll be hard to demonstrate at 15 meters because that's pretty far away. So we can actually just set that to 5. Okay, so let's press play. We're going to fling our car away. Okay, so we're pretty far away now. Pressing E, I'm pressing E, I'm pressing E. Alright, so I'm going to get close, and I'm back in. Getting 5 meters away. Yep. Am I close enough? Am I close enough? No. Yeah, okay. So that's kind of cool. Alright, so if we're far enough away, if we're close enough, then we can get back into the car. Can we extrapolate this? Can we make it work with multiple cars? Yes, and I think that might be for another video. All right, thanks a lot. You guys are very smart. You guys chose to watch this video, and because you're smart and you want to see more content like this, you guys are going to hit the subscribe button, and you're going to like the video. Obviously, if you didn't like the video, you can dislike. I would appreciate if you guys left a comment if you didn't like it to tell me what's wrong. All right, let me know if I'm going too fast. Let me know if you want me to put music on these videos. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.